Good morning, book family. It's time to talk witches. So, as I said on Monday in A Week in View, I was going to further review The Once and Future Witches by Alix Harrow. I'm also in this video going to review Speaks the Nightbird, because these two books kind of overlap in a way to do with witches. One thing I have to say, which I've said in a couple of videos now, is I have a love of anything witchy. I love magic. I love a magic system. I just love magic in as a whole. I love anything and everything to do with magic, especially when we're talking witches. I've grown up with a love of witches. I grew up with a slightly disturbed mother who convinced me at a young age that I was a witch, and I used to go into what is known as junior school in the UK, telling all my friends that I was a witch, to which I was attempted to be bullied for, but that didn't pan out as the kind of kids was hoping. But yeah, I was absolutely convinced that I was a witch. And to some degree, I think my childhood still sticks with me, and I would love to be a witch. I would love to find out that suddenly I had these witch powers. I can't be the only person out there who feels that way. I know it sounds weird and it sounds a little bit out there. I am a little bit weird and a little bit out there. I'm not denying that. But anything that's to do with magic, I adore it. Be that book, be that film, especially when it contains witches. So films such as Hocus Pocus, such as Practical Magic, such as Witches of Eastwick. Anything that's a film to do with witches, I'm all in. I want to watch it. I love it. So when it comes to books, I'm all in again. And this book by Alix Harrow, The Once and Future Witches, is everything. It's absolutely everything. This author, she's taken fairy tales and twisted them to the narrative. She's used them as the essence of witches' spells. And before she even sort of explains the spell itself, she gives you, in some sections of this book, a tale to which the fairy tale matches the spell. There's a slight twist on the narrative of fairy tales as we know them, but she's still kept to things such as Sleeping Beauty, Rumpelstiltskin, Rapunzel. She's still kept to those, but towards the end of the book, she's actually made some of her own fairy tales. So to me, as an author, to actually take the time to write another narrative on top of a narrative is something of a skill. So she's told these separate little short stories on top of this whole novel. And I love that element. I think that is such a beautiful, magical kind of just fantastical element to put into a book, is to add these little snippets of history or potential history to these witches as to where the magic could have come from. The character building in this book is amazing. The arcs that these ladies go on to come from knowing that the witches, because the grandmother raised them to know they were, she gave them the secret of words, which is within this book where all the magic comes from, is within the words. She gave them this information, so they knew this, and they messed and played around with it as children. The dad didn't like that. The dad was a bit of an ogre. He's a bit of a horrible man. Did punish them at times, was quite violent in his punishments. So all three grew up to not like the dad. And it was when the youngest daughter, Juniper, was born that the mum died. She died in childbirth. So the other two sisters had this opportunity to know their mum, who too was a witch. But Juniper doesn't get the opportunity to meet or know her mum. So she feels slightly left out because of that. But the two older sisters leave her because of the dad and things that happen. And Juniper's left with the dad, and the dad gets ill. And she kind of nurses him through his ill health. But eventually she's had enough and she gets rid of the dad. So she runs away to Salem, not knowing that she's going to find her sisters. She has no concept where her sisters are. They've been sort of away from each other for like 7 years. So she's got no clue as to where her sisters have gone. But by some magical power, they find each other again. It's like this key of 3. There's always this key of 3. Generally, that is a census within witches, is like this key of 3. There's power in 3. So for some reason, she ends up in Salem. That's where her sisters are. And due to the equinox and this happening of this tower appearing with these 3 circle symbols on it, the sisters find each other again. But the arcs that each character goes through, from being who they once were as a child to who they are now as a woman to where they're going to in this story, are so beautiful that they mirror the old tales of the 3 witches. So there is the maiden, there is the crone, and there is the mother. So these 3 witches actually reflect on the witches within the story, such as Bella, Agnes, and Juniper. And it's just this whole fantastical, magical, beautiful journey that Alix E. Harrow takes you on. Yes, it has ups and downs, of course it does. Yes, there is ill treatment because it's the 19th century. Women were still fighting for the right to vote. So there's all this going on with regards to, equality for women and feminist rights and such. But this book very much leans on that because of the feminist aspect. Alix E. Harrow has taken things like the Brothers Grimm and changed it to the Sisters Grimm. So it's very, very female uprising. Now, I'm not saying that I'm necessarily a person who backs feminism to that extent, but obviously I do believe in women being, noticed and acknowledged to the same level as men are and given the same kind of encouragement as men and the same acknowledgement as men. I'm very much behind that. I'm very much behind, no sexism. I don't believe that any sex should be treated any differently. So, yeah, that's part of this book. That's kind of one of the main themes of the book is the female upstanding, the feminist content in it. She's not ramming it down your throat and she's not saying, that this is how bad things were. But she does sort of, because she's an historian, she does focus on that time of the suffragettes and how they were fighting for the vote. She does bring that into the story. But what she does do is she touches very much on the theme of family and of sisterhood, and that plays a very prevalent part within this book. And especially at the end when we get to some of the sacrifices that are made. It is just one of the most beautiful stories, and it most definitely took me back to my childhood, which not a lot of stories do that. Not a lot of stories will make you convert back to when you was a child and you had all this magic and mystery in your head and, you wanted to be in that particular place and you wanted to be a part of that. Like the first time I ever saw Hocus Pocus, I was so awestruck by the magic and the beauty of that film and how much it impacted me that I wanted to be a part of it. I wanted to be a part of the Sanderson sisters. And that's kind of what this is. The name is Eastwood. They're the Eastwood sisters. But they are very, very... They start off estranged and then they become close-knit again. They still have their issues with one another. They feel kind of let down by each other due to the circumstances that they were in by their dad. But eventually they get the opportunity to speak that out and talk about it and reflect on it and apologise to each other. But when it's necessary, they're there for each other. But the way Alix also writes her prose, I got massive Neil Gaiman vibes from it. I must have been, 20-30% into the book, and I was starting to feel like I was reading something very similar to Neil Gaiman. His style of writing, how it's enticing, kind of eccentric, exciting. This writing is exciting. Alix gets you going from the get-go. You can't wait to continue. I ploughed through this, even though I was reading 3-4 other books at the time. Once I'd got this off the recommendation of Rabin, I ploughed through this so quick because it was everything I've loved as a child. So the way that she draws you into this world, the way that she describes it to you, the way that she handles some of the feminist aspects, the way that she handles the men in this book and their outlook towards women, and some of the men whose outlook towards women is good, is positive. It's fantastic. She's amazing. Her antagonist in this book is so surprisingly different with what they can do and what they use, and who they are. I did guess who they were, so it's not an entire mystery. I did guess who the antagonist was, but the lengths that they go to, and kind of, I'm trying not to give anything away here, I'm trying not to be spoiler, kind of what they do and how they go about it is so sublime that there is not a single moment in this book where I was disappointed or let down or felt a lull or thought, oh, I could have lived without that part. Not one single bit of it. So this book for me is very much up for the standing of Book of the Year for 2024. I have a few. My favourite bookshelf, I mean, I have put a couple of others there now, but this was initially my favourite bookshelf. So I've got on there the likes of Kindred by Octavia Butler, The Book Thief by Marcus Zusak, Moshe Winter's Born in Winter. Born in Fury, sorry. Moshe Winter's Born in Fury. I've got a couple of my favourites on there. I've also got a couple of my favourites down here, but that was meant to be my Books of the Year contenders shelf. It's got a little bit messed up now, but there are still a couple there. But this, along with Kings of the Wild, is definitely in contention for Book of the Year for 2024. I'm struggling to actually have words to say how much this book impressed me. I would absolutely adore to see this book go to adaptation, but I don't want it to stray too much from the story, because what Alix has wrote is so perfect for screen that it doesn't need to be adapted. It's not R-rated. It's very much something that is kind of acceptable for teens. Maybe, I don't even think it really needs to be tweaked that much for children, but there may be slight elements in it that maybe need to be adjusted, because it's not that dark, but it has a darkness about it. It's not explained in a horrible, dark way. There is some swearing, but it fits the narrative. So, maybe that would need to be either, rated, or left. I'd rather it wasn't left out, because it kind of fits the context. But I have thoroughly enjoyed this book, and the Salem that she paints is kind of very fitting. It's kind of town-like, and you do have these homes that the girls are in. Agnes in particular is in kind of a slummy home. To a certain extent, so is Bella, but she's a librarian, so she's kind of in a better position than Agnes. Agnes works in kind of a factory. And then Juniper just shows up with no intentions of really looking for work. That's not her thing. She's very kind of a stubborn character, very headstrong. She's not looking to gain employment. She's looking to make a stand as a witch and make herself heard, and bring other women and other witches out from the shadows to stop hiding in fear of being hung or drowned or whatever. She's there to rally the women and get them to recognise that probably all of them have a little witch inside them. The mothers or the grandmothers must have told them nursery rhymes and fairy tales, and from that they do have a little magic. They just don't really recognise it, or they've forgot it along the way, because they've been downtrodden and led to believe that witches are bad and you shouldn't say you're a witch. Whereas this book is promoting witches, not because they're evil and because they kill children, but because they have the power to make women strong again, and to go against these males who are very misogynistic and don't want any female uprising. They want the women chained to the kitchen sink and to just bear babies. But Juniper is not about that, and she wants this kind of uprising and standing of women, and to bring witches back. Because there once was witches, but with everything, with the Salem witch trials and all that kind of stuff, they've all gone into hiding. But they haven't forgot to tell the tales. They've not forgot to tell the old stories which give the magic. And that is what makes this book so magical. Not just the relationships between characters, not just the events that happen in this book and how they unfold, and the mysteries that come to life, because it is a mystery as to who it is who wants to prevent the witches in this Salem from being seen and heard again. It's just about this beautiful fairy tale like adventure that Alix takes you on, interweaving actual fairy tales but with a twist that is so good. I cannot rave about this book enough. So I strongly advise anybody who is of that mindset of loves anything fairy tale, loves anything witcher, has a thing for things like hocus pocus, practical magic, witches of Eastwick, this is a book for you. So all my sister witches out there, this is a book for you. So I highly rate Once and Future Witches. Highly rate it. And then, sitting on the same kind of idea of witches, I finished Speaks the Nightbird. So in this, we have Rachel Howarth, who is a witch on trial, apparently. She's accused of being a witch because the Reverend of Fount Royal has been murdered, and so has her husband Daniel. But she is absolutely adamant that she is not a witch. She's had nothing to do with these murders. So what we follow here is the trial of Rachel Howarth and to find out whether or not she's guilty. But we also follow Matthew Corbett in his investigation as to the murders of the Reverend and Rachel's husband, and this Spanish gold that he's found and where this could possibly have come from. Matthew is so vehement for justice and right being right that he spends time in the prison called a gaol with Rachel, and he's not feeling that the testimonies that he's hearing are necessarily fully backed up. Yes, they cross over with the same information, but there are certain elements that to him don't make sense, such as if somebody can remember such minute details as gold buttons, which they do, why can't they remember whether or not they put the shoes on? So it's that kind of idea that Matthew is interested in investigating. So he is just a clerk, basically, for the magistrate. The magistrate has come from the main town to do this, but there's a few magistrates that have been sent. However, they've met a bad end and haven't made it to Fount Royal. So they've had to keep sending for a magistrate. And a similar kind of end almost comes to Woodward and Matthew. However, they managed to escape, get away from Shoreham, who is the guy whose intentions are bad. They do get to Fount Royal, kind of naked with none of their stuff because Shoreham's taken it. But when they get there, Woodward slowly and more progressively becomes more ill, to the point where he can't actually speak. So Matthew has to take over the inquiries in the witnesses coming to give their testimonies. But Matthew, being the inquisitive creature that he is, asks questions that infuriate the magistrate. But when you read this, you go along with his questions thinking, oh no, you've got a fair point there, ask that question. For example, a question such as, so you noticed there were 6 buttons on the cloak. Were they in a straight line or were they across from each other, sort of 3 on one side, 3 on the other? And these people are left dumbstruck. They can't answer this question. They keep repeating about something about silence and how the village was silent. And Matthew finds all this wrong. It doesn't add up. It doesn't make sense. So he is on a mission to investigate how can the village be so adamant that it's Rachel Howarth with all these missing details. And it is a journey. We go on a journey with Matthew. It gave me strong recollections of Agatha Christie, even to some extent Poirot. It's very much that kind of investigatory style, which I really loved. But I also loved the outside elements of Matthew meeting new characters along the way. So he talks with some slaves, he talks with some people from Fount Royal, he talks with some actors who turn up. We also get Exodus Jerusalem, who is an absolute arse, who I don't like. When he makes his appearance, it made me so frustrated that I had to do a short about it, because just that whole using God for every reason that there is to sort of prove somebody's guilt without actual evidence. I just don't like that. And that was a thing of history. That was very much used against people in 15th, 16th, 17th, 18th, 19th century, that they weren't even given a fair trial. A lot of women were hung as witches without evidence. Somebody just shouted somebody was a witch and they were hung. And it's that kind of vibe that Exodus Jerusalem is giving, speaking in an old tongue, saying thee, thou, thy, that he wants to just hang Rachel Howarth, get rid of Satan, because he's doing God's work. Whereas Woodward, who is the judicial, who is doing this hearing, and Matthew, who is his clerk, Woodward is not for this, he's not having any of it, whereas Matthew is the investigator. He's decided to make himself Rachel's hero, in a way. But it's not for wholeheartedly Rachel. Yes, he has a little bit of a crush on her, but it's not wholeheartedly for Rachel, it's more for justice. Matthew wants justice. We also have the character Bidwell, who can be slightly annoying. He gets very irritated with Matthew and his questions and doesn't really like him, but they have to have a little more interaction because of how ill the magistrate is. So Matthew is doing more of the talking with the other people. We have a doctor called Dr. Shields, who does come across in certain ways as quite slightly sketchy, like there's something not quite right there too. Same with Mr. Johnston, who is the teacher of Fount Royal. There's something a little bit off about him as well. That doesn't quite add up. So, yes, we have a 17th century kind of story, but very much with those feels of Agatha Christie. So if that's your kind of thing, that kind of murder mystery with going through, meeting all the suspects, learning new things as you go, picking up on clues, not quite getting that tidbit of what we need to, finger point and say that's who it is. We're getting little snippets of information from different people as to, it could be them. It could be them. I love that. That's something that Agatha Christie does perfectly when she's doing a murder mystery. I know them all pretty much by heart. I've read them, watched them, so it's never a surprise to me. But when you read something new that is done very much in that style, but in a completely different time setting, it's fantastic. So this is such a good book. Yes, it's a chonker because I believe that it was originally sort of two separate books and it's been clumped into one. But the arc of Matthew from just being this potentially not scared, but more of a thinker than a fighter. He's more of a practical man than he is a hands-on fighting man. And he goes from that to being the opposite. He's still a thinker, but he does have this survival in him. So he goes from being this, what you might consider a weak, mild-mannered clerk, to a survivor. And he does exactly that. And I just love how we meet all these characters. We get extraordinary descriptions of the surroundings. You get the feel for this murky, muddy kind of Fount Royal and what it feels like to be there, and how these people have come from surrounding towns to make a new life for themselves in Fount Royal. But because of this threat of witches and Satan, people are just running. So the town is slowly but surely decreasing of its popularity. And Bidwell, who is the town's founder, is slowly but surely losing his stability because his town is crumbling. So he's lost at what to do. But it's just the intrigues. There is some espionage in this, which is quite interesting. It's the relationship that is slowly building with Matthew and Rachel. It's how Matthew is like a dog with a bone and he's not prepared to let this go. And he is on a time scale. I don't think, there is an outcome to the trial. And Matthew has a time scale of sort of 5 days in which he has to complete his inquiries. And it's just sort of that intense, on the edge of your seat. Is he going to do it? Yes, he's finding things along the way, but are they relevant? Are they relevant to the final outcome? Is he going to be able to manage to clear Rachel Howarth's name as a witch and get her away from Fount Royal, or even just find the real perpetrator of these crimes and expose them? And there are a lot of twists and turns. Lots of twists and turns in this. Some surprises thrown in there that you don't see coming. Some you do see coming. But I just loved it. I thought, what an interesting, amazing variation on classic murder mystery to put it into not only a different time set, but also just by the way this author writes it. It is so good. It's such a good book. So I have thoroughly enjoyed these two doozies of witch involving novels. They are both high up on my list. Yes, they both could be up for Book of the Year. This has a slight edge on this just because of how it kind of took me back to my childhood and made me feel all the feels I felt when I was younger, of the excitement and how I wanted to be involved and I wanted to be there. This too made me feel that way to a certain extent. It didn't take me to my childhood, but it certainly gave me this journey of where I wanted to be there. I wanted to be in Fount Royal. I wanted to be walking around with Matthew and helping with this investigation. So these are two very, very fantastic witch-based books that I have loved. So if you haven't read either of these, Alix E. Harrow, The Once and Future Witches, and Robert McCammon, Speaks the Nightbird, I would strongly advise that you do. And this does have a continuation. The next book is called, just bear with me while I find it, because there is kind of one of those little snippets at the end for you to have a taster of it. The Queen of Bedlam. That is the next episode of the Matthew Corbett series. And I am invested now. So when I get to it, I'm going to pick up Queen of Bedlam. I can't wait to get into it because Robert McCammon has created such a fantastic character, with Matthew Corbett, that I just imagine this series is going to go from strength to strength to strength. I don't know if he changes sort of the what's the word that I want? If he changes the essence of the mystery from like a witch trial to something else, whether or not I'm going to be as into it, but I do really like the character Matthew Corbett, so I am going to continue. I haven't read Queen of Bedlam. I haven't read that little snippet because I want to be surprised. I want to read it afresh, anew when I get the book. So I have loved those two books. So if anybody out there has any witch related book suggestions, please let me know, because I wasn't really aware of it. I know how much I love witches and I love the whole theory and the whole idea of the magic and the cauldrons, and that whole thing encompasses me in joy. If you know of any good witch related literature, please let me know. Please put it in the comments and let me know. And also, I'd like to put a little bit of a plea out there. I have a Discord, and I would very much like to see potentially more of the book family on my Discord. I'd love to see some people chatting on there and get to know each other and potentially having chats with me. That way then I think we'd have more of a chance of doing read-alongs in the future. So in the description will be the link to my Discord. If there is any problems with that, there shouldn't be, but if there is, please let me know in the comments, because I always read every single comment and I always reply. So let me know in the comments if there is any problems with the Discord. There shouldn't be. So hit that link to the Discord. I also have Voxer, where we can chat as well. These are just other options. Rather than just communicating in the comments, we can actually communicate outside of just YouTube and have a decent proper chat about books. So yeah, hit me up with some witch book suggestions. Anything to do with witches, especially Salem. I'm so into that. I will absolutely give that a read. So throw them in the comments if you know of a book with witches that I'm going to enjoy, because it's very magical and it's very hocusy-pocusy kind of, those type of books. Let me know. I can't wait to read more of that kind of material. And yeah, please join in on the Discord. Please join our Discord. We'd love to hear from you on there. We love the comments, so we'd love to see you on the Discord as well. Other than that, it's Wednesday. It is very early in the morning because I'm kind of concerned that there's going to be some work going on next door. So I got up early to film this early. And I was chomping at the bit to talk about these 2 books because they are superb. And if you haven't given them a chance yet, please do. Please do. So it's Wednesday. Have a great day. I was out yesterday in the sun a little bit and I got a little bit of colour. I don't know if you can tell. Got topped up the colour a little bit, ready for the holidays. Woohoo! Holidays next week. So yeah, I don't think there will be a video on Friday. I've got an awful lot to do on Friday. I've got places to be and people to meet and all those shenanigans. So on that note, have yourselves a good Wednesday. The weather is beautiful here in the UK. Put your sun cream on, but go out and enjoy the weather. Also, don't forget, tomorrow at 9 p.m. GMT, which is UK time, I will be doing a live to celebrate the 200 subscribers that we have so beautifully received. I don't know how that's happened, but yes, we have 200 subscribers now. We can't believe it. It's overwhelming. So we're going to celebrate that, and we're going to celebrate it by doing an interview with the one and the only Steve Stark, the author of this little book, A Hot Dose of Hell. I have spoke to Steve and he has graciously said that he will come on the channel and we will do a Q&A with Steve to celebrate our 200 subscribers. So again, that is 9 p.m. tomorrow GMT time. So please be there, please show support and come and say hello if you're one of our subscribers. We'd love to actually talk to you all and see you there. We've set it late so that hopefully other countries can be involved. Both me and Steve are UK based, so we could have done it earlier, but I set the date at the time later so that hopefully some of our across the pond people could join in and turn up in the comments. So please come on over and watch that. It should be fun. We're going to be talking horror and yeah, about A Hot Dose of Hell and how Steve really came about starting writing his horror book. So that should be a good one. So that's to celebrate 200 subscribers and also to have my first ever author interview. So I'm very much looking forward to that, and I hope you'll all come over and support. So have a great day. I'll see you all tomorrow, hopefully. Until then, take care of yourselves. I love you all. Bye bye. Don't forget to join the Discord. Bye bye. Hey everyone. Thanks as usual for watching this video, and if you want more content you can click on one of the following links. Thanks so much for your support. See you again next time.